Okay, so good morning, everyone. Welcome to the macro snapshot. We are Friday, June the 20th, 2025, recording this about 7:30 in the morning. Okay, so let's just have a quick look. Not a huge amount going on. We had the Juneteenth sort of a holiday yesterday in the US, so the cash markets were closed and the futures markets had an early close. So there not a huge amount of volume and not a huge amount of price action. Probably the most important thing was really happened in the oil market. And we have here on the screen, we have the crude oil, excuse me, the WTI sort of front contract here, and you can see here that it's come off a little bit without coming off a huge amount. And this is because Trump yesterday, fairly throwaway sort of comment, but basically he said that he'd be coming to some kind of decision within about 2 weeks in terms of a potential military intervention in Iran. And so the market took that as a signal that Trump potentially wanted to give a 2 week window for diplomacy to work. And therefore, we saw a little bit of softness in the oil market. And again, that's represented in the price. But also, if we look at, let's say, volatility here, we look at oil volatility, OVX, you can see that this has been at extremely elevated levels up into the 70s for the last, 5 or 6 days or so since Israel started attacking Iran. But now it's come down a little bit. But the thing is that the market is still very much on hold and sort of a little bit nervous and cautious because at any given moment, Iran could be attacked again by Israel in concert with the US with this sort of famous sort of bunker busting bomb. Let's see what happens. And the other thing as well is that Trump, by saying 2 weeks a window before he makes a decision, that also could mean that he makes a decision in the next half an hour to sort of intervene and help the Israelis just destroy that nuclear facility. So the oil market is not yet ready to completely sort of, for volatility to completely get down to into the 30s and 40s. And we can see that if we actually just look at the curve, let's just I just want to share with you here from the Bloomberg. Let's have a look at the oil curve here, and let me just find that. And you can see here, this is today's price, which is the white. And you can see that here compared to yesterday, it's still quite elevated. So if we just actually take out yesterday, this is a little bit distorted because yesterday's contract didn't actually settle, will actually be settling today. So the thing is, the price has come down a little bit, but the point I'm trying to make here is that the differential, as I say, yeah, this is a little bit distorted because we didn't get that final pricing yesterday at 230. But the point is that they're still very, very close together, and that oil actually hasn't come down that much. So let's see what happens today, and probably not even today. We probably have to get through now the weekend without military action and then further signs of diplomacy. We do have the European foreign ministers meeting with, I believe, the Iranian foreign minister today. So let's see if that's positive. If that's a negative and the Iranians are sort of belligerent and even bellicose, that quite possibly would be a bit more sort of risk off, and oil could get another sort of push upwards. Let's see what happens then. Okay, as I say, not a huge amount going on, but what we can do is just look at a couple of different charts here. There's no real particular data today. We see that VIX overall, again, it's not at super low levels. I mean, if we go back quite a few months or whatnot, we can see that VIX spent a lot of time in the low teens. So, 13, 14, 15. It seems to have settled in a range of about, sort of 17 to, let's call it 20, 21. We had a bit of a sort of a pop just on the Iran Israel thing the last few days. But essentially now we're back to 20, which again does imply about a 1.5% move per day. So it's not super, super low VIX, but obviously we can see here on the VIX chart that it's nothing at all as it was, around the full tension of tariffs. So that's not really a factor. Today, in terms of the equities, we also get the so-called quad witching. We get the sort of the expiries. It's the 20th of the month. We get the quarterly expiries, the monthly expiries. So there's a huge amount of notional coming off, and a lot of people are saying that a lot of dealer positioning is positioned around the 5,900 mark. And so once all this comes off today, all of these options, maybe there's going to be an increase in volatility. But at the moment, we can see that the equities are essentially just in a just grinding in a sideways range here. They're finding it difficult to make new highs, and they certainly don't want to sort of come down. So at this point, the market is really just sort of in a holding pattern. It's waiting for sort of new direction from sort of foreign policy, from risk, and also from the central bank. The central bank meeting we had on Wednesday with Powell was very much a wait and see for 2, 3, 4 months. And so it looks as though the markets going into the summer period is also doing the same. So not a huge amount expected today, unless, of course, we maybe get geopolitical. But even geopolitical events in Israel and Iran are not moving the market more than, sort of, I don't know, 50, 100 points for an hour or two. Other things to look at with we're getting pretty strong sort of another sort of pushback after that risk off, more so in the European market. So the German equities are up today, the DAX. What I would draw your attention to, kind of interesting, I was looking this morning at the Kospi, which is the Korean index, and that's absolutely going. It's broken out of a range basically. So if you have a look here, you can see there's been on an incredible uptrend. You see all of these moving averages really sort of pointing upwards. And this is a very, very big level here. There's just over 400. If we actually go back quite a long time, it's kind of like a triple top going all the way back to 2021, all the way back here. And you can see here we've broken out of this range. So this technically has a long, long way to go. There is a little bit of resistance. The next stop would be, let's say, 421, and then all the way back up to the 2021 levels up at 440. So it's going to be quite interesting to see here, just technically, whether it's broken this downtrend, whether the Korean index just continues to go up into this blue sky, or whether this is just a bit of a fake out and it wants to sort of consolidate here. I don't know the specific reasons for this. But certainly there was the new president. We had the presidential sort of elections 3 or 4 weeks ago. So ever since then, there's been sort of a general risk on tone, and maybe just that political stability has really helped the Korean index. Because certainly there's uncertainty about the situation with tariffs and China, but it looks as though that political stability is pushing that. Just looking at a couple of other markets as well. I just want to look at coffee. So let's just have a look at Robusta coffee. Also, that's at quite an interesting level because it broke down through sort of a resistance here. So we can see here, just have a draw this on the 1 day chart. So you can see here that coffee, it had been just sort of bouncing a little bit off this sort of resistance down here at about 4,200. But we can see that it's absolutely broken down, and you see all the moving averages now pretty much heading quite aggressively downwards. So this looks as though, again, we have a bit of a level here to look out for. That's going to be the next resistance at 39.60. So it wouldn't surprise me if we get a little bit of stabilization there. But if it doesn't hold there, you have to say that coffee could have another further plunge downwards. And that's just basically the Robusta coffee. A lot of it comes out of Brazil, and there was a very good crop. A good weather, good rainfall, and a good crop there. I've just been reading some stuff yesterday about that. That the Brazilians are expecting a fairly good crop here of Robusta. So that's just putting a little bit of downward pressure on the price on the basis of increased supply. Interesting. Another one to look at, which of course we all look at, is the dollar index. And just let's just have a look. Sorry, where am I? Just bring up the dollar index. Sorry, where's my dollar? Here we go. So here's the dollar index at quite an interesting technical level. We all know that this sort of 98 level is very much like a triple bottom here. It's a level which is held for a little bit here, and we all know that that from a sort of stochastics or whatnot, it's very, very oversold. But it looks here as though the dollar index is starting to find a little bit of a base. It's at quite an important sort of junction here, because we have this very strong downtrend line, which it is finding hard to break. It hasn't broken that, once, twice, 3 times. Now just hovering around that. So this is quite an important level to see if it's just a fake out here, and whether it comes down or whether it actually can break out. If this has a substantial breakout, I would say even over 99.4. That's probably like, if it can sort of with a bit of sort of strength to get above that, they definitely could push up towards the 100 level here. But at this point, we're still even with a bit of the risk off sort of situation with Iran, Iraq, is just finding it very difficult to go a lot higher. So that's kind of interesting. He seems to be stuck at this 20-day EMA with the downtrend. But if we look also at, sorry, I'm just going to look at something else here. If we look at just some more sort of classical indicators in terms of technical analysis, we can see that we still have it was stuck at the bottom of the Bollinger Bands. It bounced off there, had a little bit of a reversal candle, this yellow one here. But still, the trend, the momentum, which is this purple sort of lozenge shape here, this triangle here, this is still pointing downwards. So the momentum is still low. It's finding it difficult to get above the middle Bollinger Band here. You see the middle Bollinger Band is generally keeping on the bottom side of the Bollinger Band. It's not actually oversold at this point, because you see here some of the stochastics. It's not actually oversold, which would be could be indicate up here or something like that. It's just in the middle here. Sorry, overbought or oversold. So nothing really a problem there, but not really signaling a reversal. So we could get a bit of a sideways grind here. And this seems to be, just judging by the price action, anything which is sort of a positive development in the Middle East, the dollar seems to be falling. So any kind of positive outcome on Iran, Iraq, we could maybe see a bit more downward pressure on the dollar. So that's interesting to look at that. Just in terms of overnight news as well. The yen, there was a higher than expected sort of core CPI beat, so the yen had a little bit of an initial pop. But as you can see here from the chart, the US dollar actually doing relatively well against the yen. And again, that seems to have found a basing kind of formation here. Although what's happening is that the volatility, you can see here, the volatility is collapsing. And if we look at, let's say, something like the Bollinger Bands here, just put on the Bollinger Bands, you can see that the Bollinger Bands are sort of contracting, although the US dollar at this point is on the top part of the Bollinger Band in the middle one you see here, and it's sort of grinding upwards. So this is again at quite an interesting sort of decision point. Of course, we do have, just from this latest impulse here, you can see this impulse here from the 13th of May. We're now at the 50% retracement level here on the Fibonacci, and we're now getting to an interesting level that we're getting up to the 61.8 Fib retracement, which also is in conjunction, a confluence with this recent high at 146.20, which also is a downtrend line here. So I would say that this line here wouldn't surprise me if USD JPY gets up to, let's say, 146.10, something like that, and then it's decision time. And that's really going to be at a time whether either the bulls in the US dollar continues to push it a bit higher, or whether the overall trend, which we just put on the EMAs here, the overall trend, which is still sort of negative, the trend is still downwards, whether that pushes downwards. But you can notice here that the 20 and the 50-day EMAs are starting to turn upwards. So the 50 is flattening out and the 20 has already started turning up. So a little bit of sort of a positive energy there in the US dollar, but not a huge amount. In terms of other stuff, gold, just on that slight sort of risk on sort of sentiment, the fact that Trump basically, said that he's thinking about things for a couple of weeks. You see here gold sort of pushing down a little bit, not huge. I mean, this chart, if you go back from any time scale, is still a very, very sort of a bullish chart. You see here all the moving averages are very high. We haven't even sort of, sort of higher highs, higher lows, or dips have been bought. Fibonacci's, you see here, even on this most recent impulse from 15th of May, we haven't even come back yet to the 38% fib. So still pretty strong. What we're seeing again is just a little bit of a contraction here in volatility, the Bollinger Bands. But as you could observe here on the Bollinger Bands, we are still more or less above the middle Bollinger. So at this point, still pretty bullish. Just in terms of sort of oversold conditions and stochastics and trends and all of that kind of sort of stuff, we can see here that this particular indicator is indicating sort of to exit the trend here, this sort of blue cross here, and a bit of a reversal on the yellow. But still, the overall trend is upwards. You see it's still sort of positive. The momentum is still positive. In terms of the stochastics and being overbought or oversold, pretty neutral at the moment. As you guys can see here, it's just in the middle with a reading of around about 50 or so. So nothing there. I think gold possibly just having a bit of a sideways movement here. And, all of the precious metals have had a big run up. Platinum obviously has had a big run up. If we look over at silver, that's had a huge run up here. It's finished its sort of extended Fibonacci extension here, which is also overhead resistance. So a very big horizontal level going back all the way. So I think for a couple of years they're at about 37.5. So normal, just having a little bit of a pause. Again, this is still a bullish chart. And if you look here, all the moving averages, 20s, 50s, 100s, all pointing upwards. We did have a little bit of a just a retracement here. But if we look at this on a fib, we'll just put a basic fib on it. Let's have a look here. You can see here that we didn't even get to the 38% fib retracement or this level here. So interesting to see here if the bulls want to take this higher. It would represent, just going on a weekly chart, pretty significant sort of price action, because we have to go all the way back to, as you can see here, all the way back to 2012. So this is excuse me, a long, long way back. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if silver here just has a little bit of a pause, even, a fairly deep retracement back to maybe 34, 34 and a half or something like that. Because if it pushes above this convincingly, then you have to say that the next upside move could be all the way up to 44. But we're not there yet. Gold obviously is going to determine that a little bit as well. Remember, silver, if the precious metals are moving, silver tends to be taken along for the ride. But silver, because about 50, 55% of its usage is industrial, it also lacks a relatively robust economy. So let's see what happens if we continue to get quite sticky inflation and maybe the tariffs settle and there's less geopolitical risk and the economy globally seems to be sort of still quite strong. We could still see silver here retest these highs and maybe even push above this level into some blue sky. I think that's about it. I think I'll leave it there for the moment, guys. Not a huge amount more to say. As I say, we don't have any more data. No, we've got through all the central banks sort of decisions this week. So I guess just wait until next week and see if we get any clarity. And of course, over the weekend, there could be sort of headlines coming out of Israel and Iran. Let's hope that de-escalates, but who knows what might happen. So I'll leave it there. Thanks and have a great weekend.